Welcome back to the College Football Pick'em Pod, and we had a crazy, crazy week of college football. We have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday of college football games, and now we are back.
Yeah, so it was 5 days of college football this week. But before we jump into last week's action and this week's action, I want to take a second to thank our sponsor. Canes fans know them well, Brett and everyone over at Caneswear. They've got the best selection of Miami Hurricanes gear by far. We're talking hats, we're talking jerseys, shirts you can't find anywhere else. They've got brand new Adidas apparel, plus their own custom clothing. Football, baseball, basketball, and much more. You name it, they got it. So head over to caneswear.com or visit the storefront in Davie off University Drive in the Arrowhead Shopping Center.
They have shirts made from garbage, from trash.
Right? With
like
the
our
sea
jerseys.
trash.
Man, that was bad that our jerseys were made from garbage. The game, we look like garbage in front of the entire country.
The entire country. The Canes looked rough on Sunday night. That was a struggle. That was not fun to watch. We were both very wrong on that game. We had both picked Miami to be -3. We thought that for sure they would cover. They just didn't even play in the first half. So,
yeah, and we will get to Miami when we talk about their upcoming game this week. We'll do a quick recap. I had a miserable week betting, especially when we look at what Phil and I did. We each started with $200 to put out. Phil, you survived this week, especially with the Virginia Tech game last night, and that helped me out as well. So you were at $215. You had a net positive. I'm down to $145. Pretty much abysmal. I don't know. It could have been worse because I did win a few bets here and there, but I did terribly, and that's why week one is so hard. I was so wrong about so many things.
Yeah, thankfully, I was here to kind of pick up your slack. I mean, I barely broke even, but I'll take even in week one, making any type of profit. The Cal game made me so mad because Cal dominated that game. They were up by 21 with 6 minutes left, give up 2 garbage time touchdowns. Next thing you know, I'm sitting here pushing. I was like, come on. Like, they should have won that game by 21. There's no reason that game should have been 7. That one made me so mad. And, I mean, honestly, the ones I lost. Like, I lost them pretty bad. Michigan, I guess, was kind of close. But San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, Louisville, UCLA is over. It was the ones I lost were rough. But
and I think
yeah, go ahead.
I think that's a kind of a good way to. I mean, I lost mine very badly, also way wrong. And I think that's here. I'll do 3 kind of positive spins for my terrible betting week. The first positive is that I hope. I mean, I shouldn't ever do worse than this.
Mm-hmm.
You would think. At least heading into week 2, I feel more confident. If I lose 25% of my bankroll this week, then I mean, I don't see that happening. This was so bad on so many bets going the wrong way. Second spin is that it's not real money. And when we look at what I actually put down, I had Virginia Tech. Obviously I did take Miami. That was a huge miss, but I think I came out a little under even in real money. So I didn't lose 25% of my bankroll in real life. Spin number 2. Spin number 3, you were saying this. I was so wrong on many of them. I almost think it's better to be wrong, because what if I was close and had the right read on these teams? I think this team's going to do this. And kind of like the Cal UNC game where you had that game read perfectly, but you still lost the bet. If it had been all of those, if Arizona, Khalil Tate's running all over the field and they win by 7 and not covering 11.5, that would be worse than having BYU absolutely stomp them. And for some reason, Khalil Tate is playing a West Coast offense all of a sudden. He's now a pocket passer. I don't know what's going on in Arizona. But being this wrong, or Oklahoma, we both took FAU to cover 21 points. That was pretty much done in the first quarter. So to be that wrong, I almost think is better, because it means our reads just weren't right. But what if we had read these games right and still lost bets? I think that would be a bigger issue. That would be more frustrating, because it's damn, you had these teams pegged, but you still couldn't find the edge on where to put the money. And so you know what I'm saying? Does this make any sense?
Yeah, so what you're saying is at least we were really wrong, so nobody trusts us moving forward. They'll just know half our bets are going to be really wrong.
I guess you could say that too.
Well, no, here's the thing. It's week one. So when I look at week one, you have to go a lot based off of last season, a lot based off of, just former performances. And like FAU, there's no reason FAU should have been that bad. I mean, the amount of missed tackles in that game was horrific. They were so bad. It was hard to like you couldn't even watch it. Like you really couldn't. And FAU, I mean, you would think coming into this year, they're probably like the fourth best team in Florida, behind Florida State, behind Miami, and behind UCF. Yeah, but they came out and they were horrible. I mean, it was really bad. I mean, Lane Kiffin was like joking before the game, like I need Sister Jean, and I need he was going through like all these religious figures. He just needs to coach the team better. I mean, that was horrible. So I say with FAU, like that's a week one blunder. If we made a mistake like that in week two, then it's like, all right, like we have to get a better read on that because you've now seen Oklahoma play. You've now seen FAU play.
Right.
I'm not touching FAU the rest of the season. I think they're favored this week. I'm not looking at FAU. Like show that you can score a touchdown when it's not 45-0 or whatever the score was at one point.
Yeah. And I had a few games like this. You look at UCF versus Uconn. I didn't think UCF would be right back on that really, really solid level, like of just clicking on offense. Like it looks like they haven't lost a beat. I don't know if you watched any of that game, but it was apparent that they are still a top tier football team. I hope they can get themselves into the national conversation. I mean, when they've won, how many games in a row have they won? It's quite a few.
Yeah, so it's a lot. I don't know what it would be dating back to 2016.
And I know that it's like, yeah, they were national championships in like one system and they've like claimed it. And yeah, but like for them to get to the playoff, like they got to go undefeated again. That will be interesting because they look really good. And yeah, they played UConn, but they looked really, really good. So I think I'm more okay. Whereas like if I had just taken these bets and kind of had the team figured out and still lost, I would be like, damn, then what can I do? Like we learned so much this week. So at least there's that.
And teams that we're not really going to talk about, but were part of huge games last week was Auburn, which I called. And Will, you had Washington. I mean, we both watched that game. There's no reason Washington should have even lost that game. I really thought you were right. I think Washington's the better team.
Exactly. That's one of the bets where it's like, man, I think I actually like, even though I wasn't super confident in Washington, if I had to pick that game again, I think I'd take Washington. Like,
yeah, I think Washington beats them if they played again. Like, I think Washington was the better team. They just were horrible in the red zone.
They couldn't put up points, which is the way you beat football teams. Like, you need to score. But like everything else, they looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. I mean, not amazing. Obviously, Auburn's defense is really good. They deserve a ton of credit. But I would say Washington came out of that game as you know, as good as you can look in a loss. I think they came out, looking pretty good.
Yeah, and then we had Michigan take on Notre Dame. Michigan was somehow within one possession at the end of that game, even though it looked like Notre Dame dominated the entire time. I touch on the Michigan game here with Western Michigan coming up, but Michigan versus Notre Dame, there was another one. It's like, is Michigan really that much worse than Notre Dame? I really don't know. I mean, this was the big games this week were kind of weird. I mean, and then you had Virginia Tech, which we both called. We both said Virginia Tech would cover, but to have them beat Florida State 24-3 in Tallahassee with DeAndre Francois coming back, I mean, just nobody saw that coming. Like these were like games like where you could have seen it going maybe either way or something, but like the way that each game went down, I just felt like was like not the way I anticipated them going down.
Yeah, and especially I think these four marquee games with the two ranked opponents, we look at all of them. Like Notre Dame, yeah, they were better than Michigan, but like you said, Michigan's right there within a score at the fourth quarter. It should never have been that close. Like Michigan could have found a way to win that game, and that kind of scares me about Notre Dame. Like, is Notre Dame even that good? Yeah. And then like Auburn and Washington both, like it was a frustrating game to watch. Like I don't trust really either of those teams.
Well, the question posed in that game is, was it good offense or was it bad offense in the red zone or was it great red zone defense? And I don't think you can get the answer from just that one game.
I mean, obviously the answer is it is a combination, and that's the lame cop-out answer. But when you have, I guess, that many failed opportunities, like we had turnovers, missed field goals. I mean, when it happens over and over again, you got to put some of it on the offense. Even if you're playing a good defense, you should score like 1 in 4 trips to the red zone.
Yeah, agreed.
And then you look at, I mean, LSU, Miami. LSU looked the best, I think, out of all those 4. And I'm not just saying this because trying to make Miami look better. That was a dominant victory. I think Virginia Tech, Florida State, Virginia Tech's defense dominated. Were they amazing on offense? Virginia Tech? Not really.
They were solid.
They were solid. In the second half, they didn't really. They're not a team that's like, they didn't like, just, you look at Virginia Tech, they're a complete team that's ready to just run the table on the ACC. Not yet. Maybe they'll get there.
Yeah. So. But let's all right, so let's jump into this week then and see what we learned. And so I'm still doing 200, even though I'm up to 215. So I'm still going to do 200. Will, you're doing all 145 this week? Is that?
I got to put it all. I'm putting it all on. You know, I like I said, I just didn't have the reads last week, and now maybe I do, and that this might be a big turnaround week. I should do better. When you lose 25% of your bankroll, it's terrible. So
I agree.
Let's do it. I'm excited to get into this week. I actually feel good about a couple of these.
All right, well, let's start off. Let's jump into TCU at SMU. That's the only Friday night game. All the rest of the games are on Saturday. It's the only Friday night game, and I'm surprised right now. This line opened at -23 for TCU, and it's down to -21.5. Now, we're doing this Tuesday morning out here on the West Coast, but as of Tuesday morning, that line is down to 21.5 for TCU. And I know they're going to SMU, but SMU lost last week 46-23 to North Texas. That's like bad. And I don't care if TCU is going on the road. Like, I just feel like TCU is probably going to blow this team away. So I like TCU at -21.5 here.
I love this one because they almost don't cover 21.5 against North Texas. Like, what was it?
They did
46. It's 46-23.
Yeah.
So
it's
like, if you can't cover that against North Texas, how are you going to cover that against TCU? And TCU's games are often really high scoring. They're kind of like they just have that Oklahoma kind of feel, a Big 12 feel, where it's just put up a bunch of points, outscore your opponent. And I can see easily TCU getting into the 50s, the 60s here. And yeah, maybe SMU puts up like 21, but I think TCU covers.
Yeah, sure. I think this game ends, even if TCU puts up 56, even if they put up 49, I don't think they put up less than 49 points in this game. And on top of that, that would mean that SMU has to put up 21, or I'm sorry, they have to put up 28. So they'd have to score 4 touchdowns in order to cover. I just don't see that happening. I think TCU,
is there something we're missing here? Because I saw this line last night and it was at -23. So that means action is coming in on SMU to cover. So maybe there's something we're not seeing here.
SMU playing at home, maybe they think that it's, I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me,
are there any key injuries that we're not, like, I haven't heard of any injuries on TCU side.
No.
I mean, I'm rolling with this. I have $15 on it.
Yeah, I have $15 on it as well. I think that I really do think that this is a no-brainer. I mean, you know, I know TCU played, who'd they play last week? They won like 55-7, but
it was like Southern U.
Yeah, it was Southern University. That's right. But you know what? Actually, I lied. This opening line was -19. It got all the way up to -23. Now it's -21.5. So the money did start out going to TCU. Then it went back. So it actually started at -19, not -23. It was just at -23. It went so quickly to -23. I'm surprised more money is now going to SMU, because I just think SMU is going to get blown away here. But we're both in agreement on this one, $15 each.
Yeah, I can honestly see this thing by the time kickoff, it's like up to like 25 or 26.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, get it now at 21.5.
Yeah. Game we're just going to quickly touch on, Will. I don't have a bet on it. I don't know if you do, but Western Michigan at Michigan. Do you have anything on that game?
I don't have anything on the game. I mean, everything here tells me that Michigan should cover 27.5 points. You know, their defense is good, if not great. Like Notre Dame that's a good football team. So yeah, they lost to Notre Dame by a touchdown on the road. Like that's not the end of the world for Michigan. They should cover this and like kind of make a statement, as much of a statement as you can make against Western Michigan. But it's again, I'm gonna stay away just because I can't trust Michigan right now. There's too many questions at offensive line. Shea Patterson didn't even look like okay. I guess he was okay, but he was far from what was expected. So I'm staying away from Michigan until we can see. I want to see them play not a Notre Dame team on the road or not a cupcake game. Like let's see just like an in conference. Let's see them play Northwestern. You know?
And
see that game.
The reason I'm staying away from this one is I don't know how many points Michigan's going to put up, and I'm staying away from this over-under because do not be distracted by the fact that Western Michigan put up 42 last week on Syracuse. It was 34-7 at half. And then Western Michigan came out and like lit them up in the second half to come back into the game and get down only one score. That's not going to happen against Michigan. I think that 42 is so inflated, and that's what's bringing this number up. But 53.5, I don't know how much Michigan's going to score because they played Notre Dame and they put up 17. How good is Notre Dame's offense? They looked pretty sound against Michigan, but are they, so I don't know how Michigan's defense is. I don't know if Western Michigan's offense is actually that good. So I'm just going to avoid this game at all costs.
Yeah, I agree here. There's too much of that fear that maybe Western Michigan puts up like a goose egg or 3 points.
Yeah,
for me to take the over, and to take the under, Michigan could just blow them out and they want to like make a statement. Mm-hmm. So just because Harbaugh is, I guess, on the hot seat, that's what everyone's saying. I don't think he should be, just because like Notre Dame's a good opponent and they didn't look great, far from great, but it's week 1 with a new quarterback. Yeah. Like give it time. So I'm staying away from that game also.
So we got Mississippi State at Kansas State. And this is another one where I am just so confused. I'm so confused as to why Mississippi State's only favored by 9.5 on the road here. I am taking Mississippi State minus 9.5. Last week, Kansas State played at home against South Dakota and won 27-24 and needed 15 points in the fourth quarter to pull out the victory. What am I missing here, Will?
I don't know. I mean, maybe like, I guess Mississippi State, maybe they're just not that good either. Like they're not playing a strong opponent. And yeah, Mississippi State's better, but I don't know. I don't love this game just because I don't know Mississippi State well enough to say, okay, they should easily cover this spread.
Well, I'm going to say minus 9.5. You have Mississippi State, who won 63-6 last week. Yes, it was against Stephen F. Austin, but they put up 63 points. So
see, I don't think when these cupcake games happen, it's so hard. Like, yes, 63 points. It sounds great, but like we see the Miami Cupcakes, and they put, like, we're going to talk about the Savannah State game. Like, we've seen them put up 77 against Savannah State, and that's one of our not so good recent seasons, like one of our worst recent seasons.
Yeah, but Kansas State's cupcake was supposed to be South Dakota, and they won by 3 and needed 15 in the fourth quarter to win. I'm taking the points here with Mississippi State. I have 10 on it because, like you, I do kind of say, well, they haven't proven themselves yet, even though they did blow out a team. They haven't proven themselves, but I just don't see. I mean, Kansas State. I just don't see what that.
I do like the cupcake to cupcake comparison for sure.
Yeah,
there is a chance that with these games, though, and I have a bet coming down that I kind of use the same logic on, that the players they're just not ready to play. They don't care about the opponent. They're like, whatever, we're gonna win so easily, we're gonna blow them out of the water. They're looking ahead, and they got someone circled on their schedule, and they just overlook the team they're playing. And you see that happen a lot. You look for those games. I don't know. I don't feel like I can trust Mississippi State after one game.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. But I'm taking the minus 9.5 here.
Cool.
And jumping into the next one, we got New Mexico at Wisconsin. And yes, this sounds like one of those games where it's like, why would anybody ever want to talk about this game? Because it's just going to be a blowout. But I did it last week, and I'm sticking with it. Wisconsin as 5-point as 5 touchdown favorites, I'm taking the underdog every time. Last week, they beat Western Kentucky 34-3, so Western Kentucky covered. Now, it was 34-3, but Western Kentucky could have scored like 2 touchdowns in that game. They turned the ball over on like the 2-yard line at one possession. They moved the ball against this Wisconsin defense. So I think that New Mexico, who gave up 30 points to Incarnate World last week, but they scored 63. So once again, this is a cupcake team that they still gave up a lot of points to, but I think New Mexico can move the ball. I think they score maybe 10, maybe 14 in this game. I think Wisconsin probably goes up on them early, and then, New Mexico kind of works their way to just getting points on the board. I wanted to take the over here. I believe it started off at 53. It's now up to like 58.5. 58.5 is a lot, though. I'm gonna avoid that over. It's going up too fast for me. So I'm gonna stick.
I saw it last night. It was at 54. It's up to 58.5.
It's up to 58.5.
I kind of like that under now a little bit more. If it keeps going up, I will consider it. Like the score I was thinking of this game that worries me is like 49-10. That puts it right at 59 points, and that would have Wisconsin covering. I've said it last time. These really big spreads, I'm not a huge fan of, so I'm staying away. Like the 35-point spreads, like that's you could see like Wisconsin is certainly capable of putting up like 7 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns. Like they have the talent, they have the team, and I think it's a matter of what else is happening in this game and who they're playing. They're going to pull their starters? How is their bench going to play? And I don't like putting money on a bench against a game that's already decided. But you were right. I mean, you were on this game last week. Like I get it.
Yeah, and so I'm just putting 10 on it. This is one of those. It's one of those if you're looking for like a game where it's a big spread like this, I think this is the way to go. I think it's Wisconsin. I just think that New Mexico is going to put points on the board, and Wisconsin just does not blow teams out. Like I said, now you're dating back to first week of last season is the last time they beat a team by more than 35, and they don't do well against the spread in these big games. So big spread games, not big games.
I see it.
Next up, we got Duke at Northwestern. So now this is an interesting one. This is like one of the games this weekend that I'm like most excited about because of how Duke looked against Army and Northwestern pulling off the upset last week in Purdue, which one of the games I called, right? I'm very excited about this game. I'm also not going to bet it at all because is Duke I'm sorry. No, I am. I'm going to take the over in it, but is Duke, I'm not touching the point spread because is Duke that good, or is Army taking a big step back? They lose their quarterback, who's like the all-time leading rusher or set the all-time mark for rushing at Army as a quarterback. Is Duke's defense that good, or was Army's offense just kind of struggling because they didn't know where to go? They couldn't find their footing. Northwestern wins a hard-fought game on the road in Purdue, pulls it out with like a 7-minute drive to end the game, which is incredible. So while I don't think that either one of these, I don't know which team's going to actually pull out the victory here. I like that this over-under is set at 48.5, and I'll take the over because I see this game being much like the Purdue game where it's like a 31-27 final, and you're up into the mid-50s at least.
I can see that. I'm not going to touch the spread, but I'm actually going to take Duke here straight up, plus 130. I think this will be a close game. Like it should be. Duke looked really good, and it wasn't just their defense. They looked good on offense. Like they were moving the ball easily. They were playing at a fast pace, and Northwestern, they like stole that win. Like they did not win convincingly at Purdue. If it weren't for that late hit in the fourth where Purdue's O-lineman just like picks up the quarterback and throws him to the ground when they had to stop, I mean, that game could have ended very, very differently. And I think Northwestern's good. I don't know if Duke is great, but I think the value here isn't taking Duke +3. I think the value is trying to say, okay, Duke has a chance to win this thing outright. Let's just put the money on them. So I have $10 on Duke at that plus 130.
Okay. Yeah, and I have 15 on the over here because I do think the offense looked good for Duke, and I think that Northwestern is going to be able to put up points in this game.
I do like the over as well. I agree with you.
Yeah,
What do you have it at now? I had it at 48.5.
yeah, that's what it's at. It's at 48 and a half.
Okay. Yeah, I have $10 on that just because. Yeah, I think both the Duke game last week, the Northwestern game last week, both hit the over, and like both these teams, they do put up points, and neither has like a great defense.
Yeah.
Like Northwestern's defense is okay, I guess. Like, yeah, Duke played Army and looked good on defense, but I'm with you. I think this game, I think both teams could score 30 points.
Yeah. Next up, we jump to UCLA at Oklahoma. Speaking of teams that were supposed to score points and teams that did score points, Oklahoma, man, they destroyed FAU. Like FAU just couldn't even put points on the board until the game was already over, but they couldn't stop Oklahoma's offense either. Chip Kelly at UCLA had a terrible first game, losing 26-17 at home to Cincinnati. Now,
they put up 17 points against 17. Cincinnati at home. That's
17 at home.
Terrible.
But hear me out again. I took UCLA in the over last week, and I'm falling into it again this week. The over-under for this game is currently set at 64. The reason that I'm taking this over is because I like Oklahoma to put up 56 on their own. I think they're going to put up so much on their own that all UCLA has to do is score 10, and they've covered. And I think with Oklahoma's defense, the way that they play, you saw it against FAU. Once they got the huge lead, they kind of slacked a little bit. And that's why FAU was able to put some points up on the board towards the end of that game. So I think that this one is going over 64. I have $20 on it. And watch me blow it again with UCLA and having too much faith. But this isn't having faith in UCLA. It's having faith in Oklahoma. I only need 10 from UCLA at most in this game.
Right. And this is like Oklahoma burned us last week. We thought FAU could cover 21, that maybe they wouldn't be a complete unit on offense because of the quarterback situation and losing Baker Mayfield. But no, they haven't lost a step. Like they blew FAU out of the water. And I always say I don't like these bets. It's minus 29.5 for Oklahoma, but I am taking Oklahoma to cover that. And it's not just because Oklahoma's going to put up points. Oklahoma's defense was much better than they have been. Like even last year when Oklahoma, like these cupcake teams, and FAU is not a total cupcake, like it shouldn't be, but they would usually give up maybe like 21, maybe 28 points and then just run up the score. Their defense looked better, and yeah, they slipped up towards the end. That's also why I like the over. But I think Oklahoma is going to cover this. Like they're going to win by over 30 points, especially because UCLA only put up 17 on Cincinnati. So like UCLA, like maybe they score 10 points, maybe they score 17.
Yeah. They have a lot of problems at UCLA. And now you're going on the road.
Yeah, and this game is going to, like, both these teams play at a really fast pace. That's great for the over. And it's also good for Oklahoma to cover the 29.5 because just the more plays you're playing, that margin is just getting wider and wider between the two teams. Yeah. So, like they're both going to throw the ball a lot, stop the clock. Both just they play, these offenses want to score. So I'm in on $15 Oklahoma to cover the 29.5 and $10 on over 64.
Got it. I got 20 on the over. I love this over. I mean, last week, 63-14 in the Oklahoma game. I think Oklahoma puts up 63 again this week. I really do. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati's offense is anything but high-powered, and they put up 26 last week. That was a close game. But on the road, now Oklahoma's at home. Yeah, I think Oklahoma puts up 63 themselves. Next up, we got Georgia at South Carolina. So Georgia's finally going to be playing a team after playing against Austin Peay last week. So you can't really get a read at all on Georgia. South Carolina. Will, what do you think about this game?
I was surprised by this spread. This is one that jumped out at me.
This is minus how I felt about the Mississippi State one too.
It's like before Georgia played Austin Peay. What's the last game they played?
The bowl game against UCF.
No, it was the national championship.
Why did I say UCLA? Sorry.
The national championship game against Alabama, and they lost by 3 points.
Everybody, I know Auburn and Georgia aren't the same team. To announce that right now.
I can see how you can mix the two up.
Okay, but go ahead. Yeah.
So, and yeah, they're not the same team. They've lost pieces on that team, but 9.5 points.
I know.
And I South Carolina's at home. I hear you, but Georgia was the number 1 team at the end of the regular season last year. Like they weren't number 1. Were they number 2?
They ended up at number 2. Yeah, Oklahoma was 3. They were 2, and 4 was Alabama.
So I think they should be able to win this game pretty easily. And I don't know really what I'm missing. Like South Carolina, yeah, okay, they put up 49 points against Coastal Carolina. But
I agree with you.
I just don't know why this spread is at 9.5. Like Georgia is a dominant football team. They're a great team. And what were they? Preseason ranked number
3.
Number 3, and then like Auburn like barely beats Washington. Notre Dame, like, yeah, they beat Michigan, but they didn't look all that good. It wasn't that convincing. And like I'm seeing those 2 teams talked about now being ranked in the top 4 because of these wins that weren't that impressive. Like they're good wins. They're ranked opponents. They're quality wins. They're better than Austin Peay, absolutely. But are we just going to forget about Georgia because Auburn beats Washington and Notre Dame beats Michigan? I mean, where is this 9.5 coming from? This is one that scares me because I like it so much.
Yeah, I love the 9.5 too because South Carolina. Are they thinking it's just because it's an SEC game? It's kind of like a little bit of a rival. It's in South Carolina. I just don't see it. I mean, I think Georgia's going down to South Carolina, but this is Georgia's first chance to be like, hey guys, like we're back. We're still here.
This is their big game, you know. And I know South Carolina's not ranked or anything, but watch South Carolina be ranked like 23 for this game.
Right. Yeah, which, by the way, we're doing this just before the new rankings come out for the week, which is unfortunate because we can't say what the new ranking is for South Carolina.
But that's good because that would get in my head. That would mess with me.
Especially after week 1. Like I said, I really hate preseason rankings, and last week is a good example of why. I don't think Washington or Auburn are as good as what their preseason ranking was, and that win is going to jump Auburn up into probably the top 4 conversation right now. And Washington made so many mistakes.
If you watch the game, it wasn't even that good of a win.
Washington could have won that game by 3 touchdowns. Seriously. And a lot of it was mistakes by Washington, not great plays by Georgia. Or by Auburn, sorry.
Oh, man.
I am messing up Auburn and Georgia. But yeah, so I like this one. I only put 10 on it in case I am missing something, but I don't think I'm missing anything.
That's my fear. That's why I didn't put a full 20. I'm like dialing it back by just $5. Like there's something shady here. Like I have to be missing something. So yeah, I like that one. I'm not touching the over-under. It's at 51. That seems about right to me. And for over-unders, man, I took so many last week in our little game here, and it just didn't work out. So I'm only taking over-unders if I feel very compelled to.
Yeah, you took the Ohio State under last week, and Ohio State put up 77 themselves. Oops.
Exactly. Again, that's one of those ones where like you're so wrong that it feels okay. It's like I didn't even know this team was playing. I thought there would be a little bit of a slump with Dwayne Haskins coming in and running that offense and not having his head coach. Nope.
No, not at all.
They're fine.
All right, next up, we got Colorado going to Nebraska. Scott Frost finally going to get a game in here because last week theirs got postponed. So Scott Frost going to finally coach his first game for Nebraska. Colorado beat up on Colorado State. Will, what are you thinking for this game? I don't have anything on it, but do you have anything?
The only thing I was considering was taking Colorado straight up. Mm-hmm. Nebraska went 4-8 last year. Yeah, they have a new head coach, but I can see, and Colorado's not good at all. I mean, yeah, they beat Colorado State, who got pummeled by Hawaii. So It's not a good bet. I'm not taking it. If I were going to touch this game, though, it's at -5, I believe, right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's enough. Like, okay, yeah, Colorado, they could lose by a field goal. You could take them and win. But if I were going to take it, I would put the money line. I think it's at 175. If that goes up to like plus 200, I might hop on that. But I doubt it will get up that high. So
Yeah,
that's really all I got.
I think the biggest problem with this game, what hurts Nebraska the most is they didn't get to play last week. So Colorado's got a game under their belt. Nebraska doesn't. So everybody's kind of still on the Scott Frost hype train. Like he's going to turn this program around right away. What if he doesn't? What if not playing Akron last week really hurts them just getting into the rhythm of things? They were preparing all summer for Akron. That game didn't happen. So now you have to just turn around and be like, well, actually, our first game is going to be against this team that has gotten a chance to play, has gotten to put points on the board and really destroy Colorado State. But I am scared of this game. I don't know which way it goes.
You know why I'm the most scared of this game? You know what scares me the most?
What's that?
It's Nebraska play.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what happens when you bet on teams without seeing them play. It doesn't work out. It doesn't work out.
We watched you do it last week. Well, okay. We're about to hop into the Miami-Savannah State game. But before we jump into that one, we got another word from another one of our sponsors here. We have to tell you about our friends at Sala, Astorita, and Cox, LLC, a boutique law firm focusing on white-collar criminal defense and security matters. They've been featured and recognized in Florida Super Lawyers as well as Florida Legal Elite, and the partners formerly worked in the U.S. Attorney's Office and the SEC. Sala, Astorita, and Cox, attorneys at law. You can visit their website at salalaw.com or call their toll-free number, 1-888-SEC-ATTY. I just lost Will for a second. As soon as I start doing the ad, he sprints away. But we're going to talk Savannah State, Miami. Miami looked absolutely terrible against LSU for most of that game. Savannah State, though, is always a nice game to have because you're pretty much always playing the worst team in college football whenever Savannah State comes to town. Will, what'd you think about that Miami LSU game now that we're actually here? Everybody's saying the sky is falling. What do you think?
Oh, great game. So much fun to watch.
Yeah.
Just a joy to see Malik Rosier back in his form. No, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I was telling Phil this earlier. It's more that this was the only game on Sunday. Like the only game in all of football. Like NFL fans, college football fans, everyone had eyes on this game. It was supposed to be a big, close battle, and it wasn't. Like we got pummeled on a national stage. And I think that's the worst part, just for recruiting, for morale. That's what's tough. If this was on Saturday, amidst the Washington-Auburn game, Michigan-Notre Dame, where you have like 10 games on at once, and yeah, it's on a primetime station, whatever. Like that's okay. But because the stage was so big, and they handled Miami. Miami got handled. And there were a couple breaks early, like the targeting call. Was that really like direct head-to-head contact? Probably not.
It looked like it's just bad luck. You're trying to make a play, guy stood up. Like it's just bad luck. It's
really a rule that is kind of, we saw in a couple games, people leaving from. I mean, that happened in the Michigan game.
Yep.
What do we have? We had a couple close PI calls that didn't get called.
Yeah,
on that drive early.
It was the first drive where there was no PI in the end zone, which could have been PI. Kicked the field goal. But Bubba Baxa missing the second field goal to go up 6-3. I know it's only 3 points, but that changes the complexion of a game. That completely changes.
Huge. When you take the lead, yeah, I hear you.
We were moving the ball at the beginning of the game.
Yeah,
we absolutely were.
The LSU catch at like the 1 yard line, like we should have reviewed that. Like we got to be on top of that. That was not a catch, and LSU runs their play quickly, as they should, and punches it in. They're like, we weren't like early on. It wasn't apparent that LSU was like the dominant team, and it seemed like as all these breaks just kept going LSU's way, like we were like demoralized. Like we couldn't, like everything we tried to do, and then the pick six.
That was it.
It's like it was it, and it was over quickly not because LSU is so much better than Miami, but it seemed like everything was going LSU's way. And LSU is a really strong football team. At least we hope so. I mean,
from what we watched, they look stronger than I expected.
Right, and we're going to find out pretty soon here if LSU is the real deal. We don't need to worry. It's not like we play, and Stanford lost to San Diego State last year. And it's like, well, man, who's San Diego State going to play to prove that they're actually a legit team? Probably no one. Yeah. LSU could get some really big wins. And then you look at it, okay, Miami kind of could say we went on the road in a big environment. Texas is definitely more SEC territory than ACC territory. And we were in it for a little bit, and then the wheels fell off. And there's a lot we can improve on.
There's a lot that this team can improve on. And here's the big game for Miami fans. Obviously, win your games. That's what you have to do. But the big game for Miami fans, 2 weeks, LSU at Auburn. LSU wins that game. Now what? Because I honestly think, and I know that we watched both of these games very closely. Like, I watched the Miami game with you, and maybe we didn't watch the second half as closely as the first half, but we watched that game together. And we were at the watch party, and everybody's excited for that game. Like, we were at the big watch party out here in LA, and like everybody was pumped, thinking like we had a chance. And I think what hurts most about this game is it felt kind of demoralizing because we thought we were going to win. Well, what if this LSU team goes and beats Auburn, who just beat Washington, and suddenly everybody is saying is in the playoff picture? Because both Auburn and LSU won neutral field games against teams that were playing kind of out of their element going into SEC country. That's going to be like maybe the biggest game for Miami, because after what we saw from FSU, no reason Miami can't beat FSU this year. Miami can still, like, everybody's acting like the sky is falling. Miami can still win the Coastal because we play Virginia Tech, at Virginia Tech, but that's by the end of the season. You better have these kinks worked out by then.
Yeah, Miami can win the ACC Coastal, go to the ACC championship game, and lose to Clemson again, and that would be fine. Like, that would be a great season, honestly, to get back there. And I think Miami winning 10 games last year, I think has set the expectations too high, where it's like in a lot of those games, Miami maybe shouldn't have won. There are a lot of close ones. That FSU game like pulled that out of nowhere, that win. UNC was close. Even Syracuse, that Georgia Tech game was crazy. Mm-hmm. So maybe if we had won 7 or 8 games last year, like our expectations would be tempered a little bit. But coming out as number 8 in the country for this big primetime game and just getting manhandled, it does hurt. And I get where like the overreaction and like Malik Rozier is terrible. Oh, Rozier. I'm sorry. His name's now Rozier. But Rozier, he was getting like just destroyed. They were getting to him quickly. Like he was getting pounded, pummeled.
Yeah.
It was terrible. So
here's my biggest complaint. And this is, I got a text from a friend after that said we were going to beat Savannah State 45-10. And I didn't even respond to that text because that text doesn't deserve a response. If we beat Savannah State 45-10 next week, you should put that in the loss column. Okay, we beat them 77-7 once. UAB beat Savannah State last week 52-0. If we beat Savannah State 45-10, then you know what? Put it as an L. Whatever.
That would be a worse performance than the LSU game.
Here's what people just can't understand. If you think about the teams we beat last year, or I keep saying the teams that Miami beat last year.
I know. I do the same thing.
It's so bad because I didn't play for Miami. I went there. But it's one of those where everybody's like, well, Mark Richt turned the program around, won 13 straight games, and now he's lost 4 straight. It's all falling apart. Okay, we lost at Pitt. That's a bad loss. After getting ranked in the top, number 2 in the country, whatever, that's a bad loss. Then you lose to Clemson, who ended up being end of the season number 1, and their loss was to, eventual champion Alabama. Then you lose to Wisconsin, and now you lose to LSU pretty much in a road game. I get you want to win these games. If Miami's going to officially be back, they have to win these games. But it's not like we just went out and lost to like Georgia Tech in a game where it's like, how do we lose this game? Like if we lose to Georgia Tech this year, then you can start worrying. But losing to LSU week 1 in this situation, yes, we looked ugly doing it, and that's what makes it the most frustrating. But one or two things early in that game break our way. You had the targeting thing, which I'm not saying was a bad call. I'm just saying that's a guy playing hard who you have a guy stood up. This isn't like a cheap shot. This was he caused the fumble. He just happened to hit the guy in the head. That would have ended a drive. You give up 2 fourth down conversions on the same drive. A possible PI, you give up a 50-yard touchdown run. Like, we didn't look that bad. It was just little things. One play here, one play there goes our way, and suddenly Miami is in this game or even winning in this game.
Yeah, and I mean that it might be a stretch to say, 1 or 2 breaks we're winning this game, but 1 or 2 breaks it doesn't look as ugly as it did.
I ment winning, like, at some point in the game. I don't mean like winning, like we're going to win the game. I mean, like,
our
you're
third down
leading.
conversions were pitiful.
Mm-hmm.
Our offensive line was pitiful. I mean, there's things that were so bad. But let's talk about the Savannah State line. There isn't one. You can't bet on this game right now. And Phil, you were saying 60 points is about where you think you would take Miami to cover?
I would say anything under 60. I think Miami puts up 63 in this game, but my biggest fear, if you're looking at a big point spread, running clock. Last time we played was our senior year, 77-7. The only touchdown was an 80-yard touchdown run by Savannah State. So don't even touch an over-under if it pops up, because Savannah State's not going to score in this game. If they do, it's going to be a fluke play like that. Miami's not going to kick field goals. They're going to score touchdowns on the drives. But once if they start doing a running clock in the second half, you just don't know. I remember FSU was a 69.5 point favorite against them the year that they won it all with Jameis, and they didn't cover because they just stopped playing. They just gave in. And I think after last week with how Miami looked, I think that they might try to put up 100 points in this game, but I don't know, maybe they just stop. And I mean, we played with 12-minute running quarters for the entire second half last time. So, but I would say if you can get minus 60, I'm willing to say 15 on that if you can get minus 60. And that's kind of like the bet I'm tentatively making here. It's part of my 200 is Miami minus 60 or better with 15.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what comes out on the line. Yeah, the over-under, like you said, Savannah State probably doesn't score. They might get a fluke score. I probably won't touch this game just with the massive spread. Mm-hmm. So, all right, let's move on.
Yeah, so moving on from the Miami game, don't worry, Canes fans. This one will be a win. If it's not, we're in trouble. Then we can panic. Next up, we got Clemson at Texas A&M. So Jimbo Fisher looking to get a little revenge against his rivals this time. But what are your feelings on Clemson going to Texas A&M? And
it's on minus 13, and they probably cover. But I don't love it.
I agree.
It's a big game. They're on the road. It will be a crazy atmosphere. Clemson's got 2 quarterbacks. So I think that probably makes it hard for Texas A&M to prepare. You don't know which quarterback you're going to get. You're probably going to see both of them again. So if anything, that probably leans Clemson's way, but I don't like it enough right now. They could win by 10 points and look good doing it. Give up a touchdown late. I can see that. The over-under's at 54. That seems about right also. And this is a game I'll have fun watching without having any action on it. I don't think I'm compelled to really take either side. But if I had to, again, I would say Clemson probably covers here.
Yeah, I think Clemson probably covers, but I'm avoiding it as well because it's one of those weird games where there's so much hype around Jimbo Fisher, getting another shot at Clemson, especially with what just happened with Florida State the other night. How do they feel about bringing in Willie Taggart right now? I'm sure Tallahassee is loving that. So when you look at this game, is the minus 13 because they think Jimbo Fisher's that good of a coach, or is it minus 13 because they think Texas A&M is that good? And that's the same thing with the Nebraska game. Is it because of Scott Frost or because of Nebraska? And I think Clemson could win this game by 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. They could blow them out of the water. Now you're going on the road. You're going into A&M. I just think that this is a game that a lot of people are going to want to bet. I just need to see more from both of these teams. And it's early. If this was later in the season, maybe I can sit there and say, okay, I'm taking Clemson or I'm taking A&M. But in this situation, I just can't get a good read on either one of them yet. But Clemson's going to win. That's done.
Yeah, you think so. But
yeah,
we thought Miami was going to win. I mean, you don't know. I mean, what if Clemson's bouncing around their two quarterbacks? It must be tough as a receiver or anyone in that offense because the two quarterbacks play such different styles. Like to be ready to play like pretty much essentially a different playbook depending on who's under center. So
and Sweeney has said that they're both going to play.
Yeah, I mean it'll be a big loud atmosphere. I don't know. I'm scared of this game.
Yeah. So
should we take it to Penn State versus Pitt?
But hang on, before that one, I want to do one more. I have one other game, and I got Virginia at Indiana, which is a small game, but we never established this for this podcast here, but can we double down and take a spread and take the team straight up for our bets here?
I don't think you are allowed to do that on most betting websites.
Okay.
So
I'm just saying, because here's where I stand with this game. I have 20 on Virginia +7, but I really think that they're going to still win this game at Indiana. I think that Indiana was kind of exposed with their run defense against FIU. Beat FIU by 10, should have beat them by more. They had the ball at the 1 yard line. Everybody who bet Indiana to cover the 12.5-point spread, I'm sure that was wonderful to watch the team run the ball into the D line on 4th and goal from the 1 yard line and not cover. But in this game, I really like Virginia to pull this out. But saying all of that, I'm going to take the points at +7 because it's in Indiana. But this is one of those games where if you're looking for an upset pick this week, Virginia's my team. I think that, they only played Richmond last week, but I think Bronco Mendenhall has really figured something out with this team. And I think that if they want to make a bowl, which I'm sure he's got in their head, if you look at the rest of their schedule, this is like a must-win game for them because there are just so many games on their schedule that they don't have a chance to win. So they need to win this game, and I think that he gets them inspired to do that. I don't think Indiana's all that good. I actually think the Big Ten had a really bad week, which will totally change my tune when we talk about Penn State. But I really think the Big Ten had a bad week, and I don't think Indiana's that good. I think Virginia is going to be able to win this one straight up, but I'm going to take the points.
Really? You seem like
I know.
What's the money line at?
It's at +220.
Oh.
Or you Yeah.
If you think Virginia's got a shot to win that straight up and it's over 200, I mean that's bread and butter. That's where you gotta put some action on it.
Well, maybe I'm like trying to figure it out because the thing was I got to figure out my 200 here. I'll be under 200. I guess that's fine. But I'm gonna do 20 on Virginia +7. But I'm gonna say like Virginia winning this game, like I just see it happening. Like I don't know. Like I just do. Like it's not as strong of a feeling as I had with like Northwestern. It's like Northwestern over Purdue last week. Like I was like, okay, this is for sure. I think the one reason that I stay away from maybe picking Virginia straight up is just because they only played Richmond. But I mean, Indiana only played FIU and beat them by 10. I think the Big Ten is.
I like the pick, man. I like the pick.
Yeah, I don't know. So I got Virginia here. I just wanted to bring that one up before we jump over to, Penn State and then give the West Coast something to listen to here. Yeah, so I'll do 20 on Virginia +7.
Cool. Let's move to Penn State, who had a scare against Appalachian State. Gave up 38 points. And this is why I'm going to take the over in this game. Penn State gives up points. Like, even when they win, they give up points. They gave up 28 to Washington in the bowl last year, 44 to Nebraska. In Nebraska, like I said, they won 4 games last year, and Nebraska put up 44 on Penn State. And Penn State won that game. Mm-hmm. And then when they lose, they gave up 27 to Michigan State last year and 39 to Ohio State. Like, this team isn't built. Like, when you think of the Big Ten, you're like, that gritty defense. That's not who Penn State is. So I think they're going to give up. Maybe I could see Pitt putting up 28 points and, Penn State putting up like 49 or something.
And what's the over at?
And the over is, I think it was like 58 or something.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I don't have it written down.
Wow. Just love it that much. You didn't even write it down. It's at 57.
57.
Yeah.
I like that one to go over.
Well, how much do you have on that? 10, 15, 20?
Actually, I don't have any money on it. I just really like it because I only have $145 out of the 200 we started with, and I can't put any action on it.
Oh, so you're not putting any action on the Penn State game?
I don't have any action, but I like it. And this is helpful for me because last week I liked all these over-unders and just bet on all of them. Just like put $10 on like 10 different over-unders. I got to pick my battles here. Like I think it's good as a bettor to like a bet and say, you know what? I'm not going to take it. So that's how I feel about this one. I think this game goes over.
Well, here you go. I think this is a trap game for anybody who watched football last week. I'm taking Penn State minus 8.5, 20 on it. I'm taking 20 on Penn State minus 8.5. They're going to beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh by 2 touchdowns at least. This was the most talked about game because of the upset factor, because it was on the anniversary of Appalachian State beating Michigan, because Michigan was playing Auburn at the same time or right after this was happening.
Notre Dame.
Yeah. I can't. I'm done with Auburn. I'm not saying Auburn again. Thank you for you're like my stat boy here. It's like, where did I mess up? Everywhere. Auburn and Georgia, I'm not talking about them ever again. I can't get it out. Michigan's playing Notre Dame at the same time. Penn State gave up 28 points in the fourth quarter.
Insane.
You know what that tells me? Penn State had one bad quarter. Penn State didn't have a bad game. They had a bad quarter. It almost cost them, and it would have cost them dearly, but they had a bad quarter. I think they learn from that. They don't get complacent this time when they go up by 21 or 28 points. And I think that they beat Pittsburgh down to prove to people that we are a top 10 team. We do belong here. We can win a road game against a Power 5 school. I think that this is a trap where people are going to be like, oh, let's take Pittsburgh. We saw what happened with Penn State last week. No, this game is a bounce back for Penn State, and they play like they did in the first 3 quarters, not like they did in the fourth.
I agree. Not completely. I'm not going to take the point spread here or the over.
Taking anything.
I'm not taking anything. And I hear what you're saying. Like, they had a bad quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But your Penn State defense, you give up 7 points. It's the fourth. No big deal. All right, whatever. Then they score again. Another touchdown. Okay, now you've given up 14 points. I think that's time where you're like, all right, we got to buckle down here. Like, there's still, 10 minutes on the clock or 8 minutes or whatever it was. Then you give up another touchdown. You give up 21 points in a quarter. And I get it. It was a bad quarter. But at some point, you got to, pretty much just sack up and make a play. And that's pretty scary that Penn State, knowing that they've already given up 3 touchdowns in a quarter to Appalachian State, and they gave them another one. that is worrisome. And I know what you're saying. And I'm not totally man, Penn State, their season's over. No, they won the game. They got scared. It was close. But they knew they had to make stops, and they didn't. And that's kind of why, again, I like this over. They give up points. That's just what they do. They give up points. So, yeah, I think we can move on from this game. It will be interesting to see them play on the road.
Yeah.
Against not a Appalachian State.
Yeah. I think they got this, though. All right, so we got 4 games left, all West Coast games here. So, all you West Coasters who stuck through all that East Coast stuff. Here we go. We started off with the biggest game of the weekend, USC at Stanford. And Will, you were right last week, but I think for all the wrong reasons. Bryce Love had 28 yards rushing. So Stanford's biggest weapon is taken away, and JJ Arcega-White said is the godsend that every Cardinal fan wanted.
Well, I wasn't completely wrong about why. I said I think KJ Costello is the real deal, and
that's true.
Taylor Christ played in the game last season against San Diego State where they lost. And it was a home game, home opener, different atmosphere, all that stuff. And do you think this should be college game day, right? It won't be, but it should.
Well, I think they already announced college game day for next week.
Is it Clemson, Texas A&M?
Yeah.
Like that would make sense.
Yeah.
But this is the only matchup against for two ranked opponents, and they'll be like 13, 12, like they'll be up there. So you think they would do it, but they won't. It's 5:30 game, so I mean, it's still it'll be 8:30 on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm. What do you
again here? I'm going with Stanford covering 3.5 points.
Me too.
USC did not, I don't think, unleash their playbook against UNLV. Like I think they're saving some of their stuff for Stanford. They don't want to, give away all their secrets, and I understand that. What worries me is they gave up 21 points to UNLV. And Stanford, let's see. It was, KJ Costello threw for 332 yards and 4 TDs. Arcega-Whiteside caught 3 of those TDs for 226 yards. That's scary. That's really scary. And that's not even, like you said, Bryce Love rushed for 29 yards. So San Diego State's defensive plan, swallow up Bryce Love, and, that should be enough. Stanford doesn't have a good enough offense to overcome that, and clearly they do. So if USC is giving up 21 points to UNLV, like what is Stanford going to be able to do on them when they have a dynamic passing threat? Like that they looked good. Like that could have been a fluke, but Arcega-Whiteside, it looked like he was the real deal. That was insane. Mm-hmm. And you have Bryce Love still. Like we can't forget about Bryce Love just because of one game. So I don't see USC being able to stop Stanford. Then you look at Stanford on the defensive side of the ball. You were saying last week how that San Diego State team, they returned their 5 starting offensive linemen. They have a really strong running back, even though it's not Rashad Penny. They put up 10 points against Stanford. 10 points. I think USC, if this game was like week 8, week 10, down the line where like USC has had time with their new quarterback, they've gotten to know each other, they're in a rhythm. Like I think there's a lot of talent on USC and they're good. But because Stanford is just a more experienced, put together football team and they're at home, I like Stanford here to cover in this 3.5 points. I have $15 on it.
Yeah, I have 15 on Stanford to cover also. We watched that whole San Diego State-Stanford game because we had opposite picks there. And I really believe that I was one interception fumble away from covering that game. Like San Diego State, that was the turning point of that game. San Diego State, Stanford's driving at the end of the first half. San Diego State picks them off. The defensive lineman's running the field with the ball. And I forget what his name is. What's the name of that receiver? It was a great play he made. But he tackled the San Diego State player and stripped him of the ball. And Stanford got the ball back and ended up scoring a touchdown. It was Arcega-Whiteside's first touchdown. Well, that made the game 9-7. And up until that point, San Diego State had dominated Stanford. That changed the complete look of that game.
It was a close game where I'm watching and I'm thinking, okay, San Diego State is the real deal. They're good. But Stanford found a rhythm. They got it together. The talent is clearly there, and they executed to put up 31 points, and they won by 3 touchdowns at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and it's like, and I get what you're saying. How San Diego State was not only in the game, they were winning, but you let those teams play 4 quarters, and Stanford was clearly just the more talented team.
Well, what I was going to say is, Stanford in the second half adjusted so well against USC that once that happened and they stopped
San Diego State.
Oh my God, dude, I'm looking at this now. Now I'm looking at it over here. But they adjusted so well against San Diego State that they stopped trying to just feed Bryce Love. They stopped trying to just force the ball into him, and they said, "Forget it. If their corner is going to be that bad, then we'll beat them with the passing game." And they did.
They're like, if the attention is all on Bryce Love, we got to go somewhere else.
And that is why this team, though, is so much more dangerous than last year's team, is because they're not just a one-man show now. Now USC has to come into this game and figure out how to cover J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, how to figure out how to cover Bryce Love. And KJ Costello showed that he could probably throw the ball to anybody. It doesn't just have to be Whiteside. It was just that was the main guy. So I think that I think that Stanford covers in this game. I think you're right that USC, yeah, that game was close and they weren't playing, they weren't doing everything they could to dominate that game. But I think that Stanford pulls out the victory here, and I think they cover. I think they win this one pretty easily. They're at home too. I think that's big in this type of rivalry game.
And I also have $10 on the under just because these USC Stanford games, they're usually grinds. Like there were a couple in maybe the mid to early 2000s where it was like just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. But recently, since Harbaugh's gotten to Stanford and now David Shaw, they run the ball. They pound the ball in. Like these are gritty games. So I'm looking at like a 21-13 final score, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick with the under there. I don't have anything on it, but I agree with you.
I'm putting 10 on it. I don't feel super confident, and I got 15 on the 3.5 for Stanford to cover.
Yeah, and I have 15 on the Stanford cover too. That's the game of the week, like I think for sure. So, so then our next game we got is Uconn at Boise, and the reason that we even are talking about this one is because the over is set at 64. This is another one like the Oklahoma one where I'm like, why is the over at 64? Like we just watched Uconn get lit up for 56 points, and we watched Boise put up 56 of their own against Troy, and so I just can't understand why this is only set at 64. I think that this goes very similarly to what it was like at UCF. Like I said last week, and I don't know if I caught flack for it or not, but you kind of were like, really? I said Brett Ripien wants to be in the conversation here for Heisman. And I don't think it was you, but I think like other people might have been like, why would he ever be in that situation? I'm not saying he will be, but that's what he wants. He wants to be in that conversation, and you just saw like that. Just like
Rozier wants to be a first-round NFL draft.
He does, and he totally messed that up. But if you watch what Brett Ripien did last week against Troy, it was crazy. They destroyed Troy. Like it was 7-7, and the next thing you knew, it was 35-7. Like that game was just an absolute blowout. Boise State's offense was firing on all cylinders, and now they're going to play UConn. They're playing at home. That game was in Troy. Now they're at home. UConn's got to come to Boise. UConn gave up 56 points at home last week. I think Boise probably puts up 63 by themselves, so all UConn has to do is score once. I really think that's all that you need here for the over. I think Boise is just going to blow them out of the water here.
I'm staying away just because I had the Boise under last week, and now I don't want to flip to the over and then have to go the other way. UConn also burned me last week. That point spread's at 33.5. That's probably a little high, but again, Boise it can be that good, and UConn is that bad, as we saw they were home against UCF. I'm staying away from both of these. So, yeah.
All right. Well, next up we got Cal at BYU, which I want everybody to know that I suffered through every second of that Cal North Carolina game. That was one of the worst college football games I've ever watched in my life, but I watched the whole thing. What I will say from watching that game is Cal might have been winning 24-3, but that was due to UNC being terrible, not due to Cal being great. So I was watching that game and I was like, this is actually like ridiculous. Like there's no way UNC's offense. There was a point where it was 2 of 11 for 7 yards and 3 interceptions was Nathan Elliott's stat line. I think that was at half. That's crazy. And still Cal was only up 17-0. They gave up 2 touchdowns at the very end of the game to make it seem like it was a close game, 24-17. This game was not close, but BYU beat Arizona bad. They shut down Khalil Tate. That was another one. Yeah, it gets to 28-23, but we watched that whole game. What was was that ever close? Was that really ever?
It was never even a question. Like, yeah. I think it was 0-0 for a while. Like, maybe even into the second quarter, like no one had scored. And it was like, okay, this is a close game. But once the points were put up on the board, BYU was in control. I do wonder how much of that was coaching. I don't know what Khalil Tate was doing. Like, let that kid run all over the field. I don't know if that will be an adjustment. I'm not like, again, I don't trust Cal at all. I don't trust Cal to lose when I want them to lose. I don't trust them to cover or win. Like I don't BYU got me last week again, so I'm staying away from that. I don't like this game.
And that's why I'm doing 20 on BYU -3. I think BYU is going to beat Cal bad. I mean, if Nathan Elliott doesn't throw 3 interceptions and throws for more than 7 yards in the first half of that game, North Carolina probably wins. And they played so bad, and they still probably would have won. The defense kept them in it, not because the defense for UNC was great, because the offense for Cal isn't that good. So I got BYU at -3. I think this is a very favorable point spread. It's being played at BYU. I think you take BYU in this game. I'm putting 20 on them -3.
All right. Let's move on to Michigan State. Goes to play Arizona State on the road. This is an interesting one. It's at -7 for Michigan State right now. I think that's way too high. This is what I'm taking. It's plus 220 for Arizona State to win this thing straight up. So I'm putting $10 on that and hoping it hits. And similar to Penn State, Michigan State had a scare against Utah State. So this is when you were comparing cupcakes to cupcakes. Arizona State was flying. They were dominant, 49-7 against Texas San Antonio. I get it, cupcake. But Michigan State, 38-31. They gave up 31 points. They barely win that game. So I don't know. Arizona State's at home. Michigan State is this is going to be at like 10 o'clock their time. It's going to start. So I don't know why. I think this is good value here. ASU has a good defense. Let's remember Arizona State beat Washington at home last year, 13-7. They gave up 7 points to that Washington team, who's now in the playoff conversation, even though they lost to Auburn. And Washington almost put up 40 points on Auburn, who has a great defense. Like Washington should have put up like 28, 30 points, at least over 30 points. They had so many missed opportunities in the red zone. In ASU, they play better at home. I like this. I like $10 on Arizona State straight up, plus 220.
Yeah, the reason I'm avoiding this one is because where I'm very confident in Penn State rebounding because they have McSorley and I think that their defense had one bad quarter. Michigan State looked bad. I mean, they really did almost lose this game. It was 31-30, and then they had to score and get the 2-point conversion just to go up.
Yeah, it wasn't one quarter.
Yeah, it wasn't one quarter. It was a game. It was the whole game. So I don't trust Michigan State right now. So I'm not going to put it on them, but I don't trust them to also be as bad as they were in week 1. So I'm going to just avoid that game. The Big Ten, this is what I was saying. The Big Ten looked bad this weekend. Like they really did. They didn't Ohio State looked good, but they,
And I can see Arizona State getting spanked around, Michigan State coming back to like, all right, we need to make a statement here, and they're fired up. Like they want to get rid of that Utah State image. I can see that happening, but I think the value is better here for Arizona State to win this straight up because it's at plus 220. Because they can win this game. Like they have a good defense, and they looked really, really good on offense. Again, University of Texas San Antonio, but they looked good. They looked confident. They were flying. So I got just $10 on that.
Okay. And I think this is our last game now, right? We have one game left.
Yep. We're going to the very last game of the weekend.
We're going to Hawaii.
It's actually a Sunday game if you're on the East Coast. It starts on Sunday, I think.
No, it's 11:59.
Oh, 11:59.
They always do it as 11:59, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, Rice is heading to Hawaii. And so, Will, by judging by you, do you have $35 of bets left for this game?
No. Gosh darn it. Does my math not add up?
It's probably me again. Last time
it's probably you. But yeah, we went back and listened, and I had said that Texas Tech Ole Miss over, which hit.
Yeah.
Okay. I got $20 on the over here. I think this is
at
like
68.5.
The lock of the week.
I 100% agree with you. I think this is the lock of the week. I have 20 on it as well. Why is this only at 68.5? Hawaii doesn't play defense, and now their offense. Both these teams have played 2 games too, which is huge. So this isn't like they just played 1 game and then they put up points. If you look at Hawaii and Rice, like what they've both done, I don't understand why this is only at 68.5. Hawaii, both of their games have been over 70. It was hang on, I have
Colorado
the score here.
State.
Colorado State was 43-34, and then they beat Navy last week 59-41. Now,
Yeah.
And then Rice loses 45-27 to Houston. So and the week before that, they beat Prairie View 31-28. So I think this is a game Hawaii wins pretty easily. They're 17-point favorites. I don't like that spread just because of how many points they do give up. But the reason they're 17-point favorites is because this game has to be played 63-42. That has to be what people are thinking. I think this game possibly could go over 100 points. So for it to only be 68.5, unless you have an instance like Texas Tech Ole Miss where the quarterback gets hurt, which is what happened in that game, which almost made that game not go over, even though it was on pace to be out of control. Unless something freaky like that happens, I think this is the easiest pick of the week.
I'm in total agreement. Again, it's one of those bets where kind of like the Georgia one, it's man, I feel so good about this. There's got to be something I'm missing. Like you said, and it would be one thing if Hawaii, in both their games, they put up a ton of points and gave a lot of points, and the other team is kind of, has a good defense and plays differently. But like you said, Rice also gives up points and scores points. So, yeah, I'm with you. 68.5. This should probably be in the 70s. It should be 75, 76. And it might get up there. So hop on this now.
I agree. Yeah, get this before it gets high, because I feel like this is going to be one where it's just going to be everybody's taking the over. I mean, if you've paid attention at all to Hawaii, then yeah, that this team is just they're going to put up points and they're going to give up points. That's what they do, but they just outscore you. I don't see this game ever going into the 60s. So yeah, that's
all right. That's the games.
So what did I miss, Will? I missed a $15 bet of yours. That's what I missed.
Let's run through these, huh?
Yeah. I'll start off with mine. Oh, you want to start? Yeah, you start, because I got to actually
just so we can figure out this math issue. What's happening? Yeah. Okay, I got $15 on TCU to cover 21.5 at SMU. I got $10 on Duke at plus 130 to win straight up. $10 on over 48.5, and that's Duke at Northwestern. Got $15 on Oklahoma minus 29.5 and $10 on over 64. They're playing at home against UCLA. Got $15 on Georgia minus 9.5 to cover at South Carolina. This is a game we didn't talk about.
That's why.
Completely through. I guess you didn't like this. This is Rutgers at Ohio State. The over-under is at 59 points.
Oh, dude, Ohio State's going to score 70.
OSU put up 77 and gave up 31 to an Oregon State team that's a pretty weak team. There is so much offense from Ohio State. I am shocked that this is under 60. It's unbelievable. So I got $15. You are right this time. $15 on Ohio State, Rutgers over. I don't think we need to talk about it any more than that. I like that.
That's a really
continue.
Good bet. Yeah.
I'll continue through here. Yeah, I missed that one. We got $15 on Stanford to cover 3.5 at home against USC. $10 on that under. $10 on ASU plus 220 at home against Michigan State. That's straight up. And then that lock of the week, over Rice versus Hawaii, 68.5, got 20 on it.
Yeah. So I got TCU minus 21.5, 15, 10 on Mississippi State minus 9.5, 10 on New Mexico plus 35, 15 on Duke and Northwestern over 48.5, 20 on UCLA Oklahoma over 64, 10 on Georgia minus 9.5. Then I did 15 on Miami as long as it's minus 60 or better. But in case that bet doesn't, in case a spread never comes out for that, or if it comes out at 63.
You're hopping on Ohio State Rutgers over.
I'm hopping on Ohio State Rutgers at over 59. That's crazy. Rutgers is not, I mean, I'm from New Jersey. Rutgers is That's crazy. I can't believe that's only at 59.
The only thing that's worrisome
I
is
don't know how I
that,
missed that.
yeah, the only thing that's worrisome here is that, because we didn't talk about this game. Sorry to interrupt, but just quickly on it. Ohio State had a lot to prove coming out for the week one. Like a lot. Like they have a new quarterback. They don't have their head coach. Like they had a lot to we need to just put up points and show the world that we are A-okay without our head coach. We're even better than last year. Like Dwayne Haskins is great. Our team is great. They don't have as much to prove this week, but on a team that likes to run it up anyway, I'm not too worried. That's my only caveat with this game, is that they might not have that drive, that they don't have anything to prove really. So I still like it. Still like the bet because again, they can give up 14 points to Rutgers, put up 49 themselves, and there you go. So it could be 49-14, which actually sounds low for a score, and that would be at 63. So
yeah, no, I like that one too. I don't know how I missed that. And then I got 20 on Virginia +7, but I really think Virginia's going to win that game. I'm weak and didn't just do them straight up, but I think Virginia pulls that one out, but I got them +7. Penn State, I got 20 on -8.5, 15 on Stanford -3.5. 20 on the Uconn Boise over 64, 20 on BYU -3, and then I'm with Will, lock of the week, 20 on Rice Hawaii over 68.5.
We might have to move the lock of the week to the OSU Rutgers, but maybe not.
No, let's keep it with Hawaii because maybe Rutgers comes out and gets shut out 50-0, which could very happen.
55.
Yeah, 56-0. Here we go. Let's 8 touchdowns for Ohio State, and Rutgers can't score a point. I've seen it before.
Okay, that wraps up our week 2 picks. You can find us at canesinsight.com and on their SoundCloud. You can get at us at Twitter. What's our handle? It's at Pick'emPod. So it's just Pick'emPod. If you want to follow us on Twitter, I don't know, we'll be posting the real bets that we're going to make, and we will, live tweet the games. And you can find us at iTunes, College Football Pick'em Pod, and you can find us on our YouTube channel if you want to listen. We do these just every Tuesday, maybe Wednesdays, but probably Tuesday. So, Phil, do you have anything else?
No, we'll see everybody next week.